So we need to find the flights for particular airport and for particular day of the week. Going back to the structure and asking ourselves, is this a sufficient structure to answer this particular question? Giving the airport, find flights which depart that particular airport. So I think that the easiest approach here, or the most straightforward, unsophisticated approach, is this. This is a question about flights. Okay. More specifically, it's the question about departures from the flight. So the departure information object gives us information about the airport code. That's very good. That's exactly what we need. So we can start here. It also has information about the day of the week. We don't have to go too far. This particular class right here has answers for matching airport and the day of the week. So perhaps then we can say, how do we get to this information? We can get to departure information by looking at our flights, and for each flight looking at the departure part, right? So we need to have some loop that goes through and looks up every flight, and for every flight it checks the departure information. So again, those get departure info, likewise get arrival info methods can be very, very helpful in this type of processing. But how do we even get to the list of our flights? Well, apparently the keeper of the list of flights is our schedule. So once again, we need to go to with the flight schedule, and perhaps we can right here we can have this useful method that says get sorted departures. So I'd like to perhaps get the list of the departures, and that would include that would be simply an array list of flights, perhaps. And those will be specific to a particular airport and specific to a particular day of the week, and already sorted by perhaps departure time. So we can happily produce our report. So that's the approach, right? So it seems like this problem can be solved with the structure of classes that we have. Right? We can start with the flight schedule, we can try to work with the list of flights, we can check the departure records, we can try to match it with the given airport and day of the week, and do our sorting and selection in this bundle, come up with the list, and then the challenge is simply, and now let's go ahead and display the information to the user. So first we need to gather and extract the information, that we need to, at some point we need to sort the information so that the report makes sense from the user perspective, and then be able to display that information. So that kind of makes sense. So that was another screenshot with the show departures, and clear schedule obviously is just like we can go through all collections that we keep in our schedule for flights and airlines, and just remove all records by clearing them using appropriate methods of collection objects. So this concludes my overview so far about the structure and some of the methods or operations that I would like to be able to implement. And so the next question is going to be, where do we start? How do we, if we say that, all right, enough design, we have enough information about this application, it's time to start coding. Where do we start? Well, perhaps what I have here is my main method, right? So in my main method, we said already that most importantly, we need to have a flight schedule, right? We need to be able to say flight schedule equals new flight schedule. right? Equals flight schedule equals new. Let me actually collapse this a little bit. Equals new flight schedule and whatever the parameters are, right? To be able to specify. So right now I'll assume just no parameters. Just maybe I can use my default constructor, right? Then the next thing is that no aircrafts exist, no airlines exist, no flights exist. The system is empty. There's pretty much nothing. Perhaps it's useful in that flight schedule, but the system is empty. Well, at least to make this compilable solution, let's actually go ahead and add a class to our package, right? So new Java class. Let me just so I can save some time, copy the name and say a new Java class and say flight schedule. I definitely need this one. Finish, right? So here it is. It would be useful to have a description of perhaps what I can do here is maybe right above this this class. I can write some information about this class. Is this class is responsible for keeping track of flights and airlines. Okay, and keeping track obviously means housekeeping, adding flights, changing flight statuses, adding airlines, and all that. So that's just a highlight for me to have. All right, so then let's add a constructor. So this is something we can elaborate later. So public flight schedule, right? So this is a constructor and it will construct something. At a minimum, we can specify something like this: array list of flights, right? Array list of flights. We definitely know that the list of flights has to be dynamic. We don't want to use Java array. We want to use a more of a generic collection of objects which are flights, and therefore we need we can say here is that let me just say flight list for now, flight list, and right away I can create it in my constructor, right? I can just say flight list equals new array of flights, array list of flights. So obviously I need to have some type of a flight class. Why not? I can create that right away. Typically the approach is this. I think especially that for those who just learning how to use classes in their programs, trust me, if you know how to add one class to your application, decide what name should be for that class, you should free to add 100 classes to your application. If it makes sense to have 100 different classes in your application, it's not a big challenge. So don't feel like, is this a big decision for me to add a new class to an application? Well, perhaps that the answer comes from your design work, right? Well, we already designed the flight schedule, the flights, the flight class, the airline. So yes, you're going to have all these classes. So it doesn't hurt to add them right away. It's okay. They don't have to be complete or fully functional, but we need something to start working with them. So again, going right back here, say new class flight, right? Flight. Okay, so yet another, I'll just keep this brief here, and we'll say uh, class responsible for managing information specific to a particular class. You know, something that I say here may be somewhat redundant, perhaps simply because the mm, the language, the description of the problem here is pretty straightforward. It's not very cumbersome. It's kind of straightforward in simple language and everything. So some of these comments can be a little bit redundant, but anyway, they give you an idea that at least when you create a new class, you should be able to tell yourself what is the purpose of this, or what is the responsibility of this class, or what information will it contain. Just say something. Just essentially check with yourself that you can specify precisely why you're creating this class, right? So I'd like to have a class named flight. Let me save this segment as well.